Are you old enough to remember when video games didn't have stories? Yes, there really was a time when we were satisfied with great gameplay alone. We didn't need a pesky story getting in the way of our games. Now, if a game doesn't have a compelling narrative, we look down on it. What is this storyless peasant of a game? Begone with you! We're no longer satisfied with great gameplay alone, for the most part. There are, of course, exceptions. Either way, we didn't go from storyless games to novel-worthy in-game narratives overnight. It was a gradual evolution. Want to see it? That is why you're here, right? To take a trip through video game storytelling history. I'll even make it entertaining. Wow, educational and fun. Aren't you spoilt?
No fluff writing advice. Cut the fluff!
Rather than start with the very first video game ever, something called Tennis for Two, which you apparently played on a submarine control panel, let's start with some games people actually know and may mildly care about. In 1978, Space Invaders invaded the video game scene. What's the story? There isn't one. There's barely even a premise. Aliens are invading. Shoot them, stop them, make them leave. 2 years later, in 1980, Pac-Man entered the world, munching mystery pills and swallowing ghosts. The story? No story. Once again, barely even a premise. Ghosts are bad, fruit and random pills are good. Munch everything. A year later, in 1981, Donkey Kong barreled onto the scene with something that almost resembles a story. For reasons unknown, I mean, you could take some pretty interesting guesses. Donkey Kong snatches Mario's misses and climbs up really high to his barrel stash and promptly throws a tantrum. Mario must then save his misses from the randy monkey, because if he doesn't at least look like he's trying to help, you know he'll never hear the end of it. Even though it's more of a premise than a fleshed out narrative, finally we at least have the foundation of a story in a video game. Little did we know, the snatch misses angle would soon become a staple of the Mario franchise and would stick around for decades to come. Thankfully, some game developers were capable of writing stories beyond "a monkey snatched my missus," and we got games like Ultima, an RPG with a genuine story behind it. Your mission is to defeat an evil wizard by going back in time and killing him before he became immortal. Why? Because he snatched your missus. Not really, not this time. Would you believe it? In 1985, in Nintendo's Super Mario Bros., Mario's missus gets snatched again. Different chick this time, princess in fact. As the game progresses, you curb stomp some turtles, immolate some Goombas, whatever they even are, and do some home invasions of King Koopa's castles, only to find you hit the wrong joint. Your missus is in another castle, every time. Until the last castle. You know, it's always the last place you look. Let's be honest, it's lazy storytelling. The first time you find a talking mushroom instead of your snatched missus, it's a bit of a twist, but then it happens again, and again, and again, and it's all that happens. We can do better than this, and we do, just not for a while yet. In the 80s, to be fair, there was more than missus snatching going on in video games. In 1987, we got the first of many installments of the Final Fantasy series, another game with a genuine story behind it. RPGs continuing to represent. Let's bounce to 1989, Super Mario Land on Game Boy, where Mario's missus gets snatched yet again. Different chick again, still a princess though. Turns out mustachioed plumbers can really pull the ladies. Anyway, this time the lady snatcher's not a big lizard, but an evil alien. What? No way! And guess what? Yes, the story, if you can call it that, follows the same simple formula. You kill a big baddie only to learn, your missus ain't here. How would I know where she is? Maybe you just go straight to the evil alien's house if he's the one who took her. Why'd you even come here? The 80s were weird. Let's roll into the 90s. During this time, we still got a lot of games that were more premise and backstory than fleshed out narrative. Think Doom, Mortal Kombat, the Marios. Oh, guess what? The writers behind the Mario franchise must have realised that treating Mario's missus like an unchained bicycle that could get snatched at any minute was so 80s, because in 1992, in Super Mario Land 2, Mario has his house stolen instead. By Wario. I mean, at least it's a new angle. I respect it. By 1994, after having the house he stole forcibly repossessed, Wario had hatched a plan to buy a house by beating the crap out of a bunch of pirates and using the stolen loot to bribe a genie. I don't know exactly what was going on, but this was one of the earlier games I recall with multiple endings, even if they were simplistic. Your loot level determined the outcome. Kinda cool at the time. But had we truly seen the end of Mario's misses going missing? No way, because Mario's misses get snatched again in Mario 64, and several times after that. I mean, at this point, maybe just chain her to a pole? I can't talk about 90s video games without mentioning RTS, real time strategy. In 1994, we got Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. The campaign mode has a story, it's fairly simple. The orcs are being nasty, make them stop. But we see the seeds of what would grow into one of the greatest video game stories ever told. Alright, not that good, but I'm itching to talk about Warcraft 3. We'll get there. Also in 1994, we got Donkey Kong Country, more proof that actual storytelling wasn't considered mandatory in 90s games. The premise? Crocodile Pirate stole Donkey Kong's bananas for no apparent reason. Later, in 1995, in Donkey Kong Country 2, the crocodiles decide to kidnap Donkey Kong himself and demand he hand over his bananas. Do crocodiles even eat bananas? What is even happening here? Whatever the case, Donkey Kong Country 2 might be one of the best games ever made. Bold claim, I know, but I stand by it. Ah yes, 1995, the year of Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. I remember playing this one on the old MSN Gaming Zone, a real relic from the past, spending countless hours swinging sabers at internet strangers. Good times. Anyway, Jedi Knight has a solid story, but I'm not mentioning this game for the storytelling alone. Let's talk about the live action cutscenes. The game had 30 minutes of footage filmed with real actors and legit special effects. Yeah, some of it looks a bit janky, but you basically get a mini Star Wars movie within the game. What a deal. But Jedi Knight wasn't the only game doing this. Command & Conquer, which came out the same year, also had live-action cutscenes. It was a sweet trend that, for better or worse, would die out by the turn of the decade. You know, about the time video game graphics got good and stopped eye-fucking us to early blindness. In 1996, we got Crash Bandicoot. Brilliant game overall. What was the story? A mad scientist snatches Crash's misses. Hey, at least we didn't get the she's in another castle BS. Crash Bandicoot genuinely is a great game, but the snatched misses trope was getting a little old at this point, so let's talk about some other stuff. Plenty more Final Fantasy games in the 90s, slinging stories, but the RPG I want to talk about now is Diablo. It was 1997, and at this point, genuine storytelling had become a staple of the RPG genre, but now we had cinematics to fuel those stories. I'm talking full motion video cutscenes beyond the game's intro, woven into the games themselves, bringing in-game storytelling to the level of movies. Not exactly. I mean, watching them now, they look like they were recorded on a Game Boy camera, but at the time, the cinematics were impressive. In 1997, we also got the first Fallout game. What a year! And Fallout, what a story! Then we got Fallout 2 the following year in 1998. The RPGs of the 90s are where writers really cranked their world building to the next level, which I believe is what fueled so many great stories. They were no longer creating linear playing experiences with linear narratives. We were now getting open world experiences with open-ended stories to match. The Fallout franchise is a great example of a game that almost lets the player take control of the narrative. We hadn't seen a lot of this until then. I can't slide past 1997 without mentioning Abe's Odyssey. We're really seeing some creative world building at this point. It's not just about the story or characters, but also the wider world in which they exist. In the 90s, world building got cranked up to 11. That's 11 out of 7. Whoa! By 1998, we were coming to the end of the live-action cinematic era. But not before Mech Commander got a few in before the big switch. The campaign had a simple yet compelling enough narrative pushing it along, which was standard practice for RTS games at the time. We're not at Warcraft 3 yet. Anyway, I'm mainly mentioning Mech Commander because it was an underrated and relatively unknown game. When the Gold Edition was released in 1999, you were lucky to find 10 people online at any given time, and I think the game deserved better. Don't we all have one of those games? A game we love but no one else seems to appreciate? Mech Commander's mine. What's yours? Drop a comment. In 1999, we got Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings. I'm mentioning this because it contained multiple campaign stories based on real historical events, a fairly unique approach at the time. Through compelling storytelling, the game made history interesting for a lot of people who wouldn't have given it a second thought. Props to the power of story. Woo-la-la! In the year 2000, Sony dropped a game that was meant to give the Final Fantasy series some direct competition, The Legend of Dragoon. Story-wise, the game had plenty of twists and turns, rich world building and memorable characters. At this point, complex storytelling was becoming the norm in video games. In-game narratives were more closely resembling novels and movies, as in they were often well written, and shocking gamers with big twists was now part of the package, because in 2001 we got Halo Combat Evolved. This game birthed probably the most famous faceless helmeted protagonist since Samus from the Metroid series, Master Chief. Not to be confused with Master Chef, an Australian cooking TV series. A Master Chief and a Master Chef are two very different things, although they're also similar in many ways. At this point, live-action cutscenes were practically extinct. RIP. And games like Halo were back to using pure CGI to bring their cinematics to life. Halo continued the growing practice of dropping serious plot twists to create not just a memorable playing experience, but also a memorable story. In 2002, we got Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Now, I'm not mentioning this because it had a particularly memorable or innovative story. Jedi Outcast gets a mention because it didn't take the live-action cutscene approach of its predecessor, Jedi Knight, and it didn't use specially crafted CGI scenes. For cutscenes, it used the in-game graphics. Why? Because 3D video game graphics were no longer offensive to look at, or at least it seemed that way at the time. Yeah, most games don't age well. In 2002, we also got Age of Mythology, the first 3D Age of Empires game, and the first AoE game with a narrative that flows through the entire game. The writers moved away from historical campaigns to conventional storytelling based on myth, and with all the gameplay innovations, it's one of the most underrated games in the series. And I just learnt they did a remake in 2024. Yeah, I'm slow with news, but it usually trickles down to me eventually. Still in 2002, what a year, and we got Warcraft 3, which along with Age of Mythology showed how rich storytelling can be a staple of the RTS genre. Coupled with its 2003 Frozen Throne expansion, Warcraft 3 provides perhaps the most compelling narrative and rich world building ever seen in an RTS game at the time. I mean, it was so compelling, it went on to spawn World of Warcraft, you know, the most successful MMO of all time. Also, the biggest worldwide cause of people pissing in bottles. I also heard that the really dedicated players shit into a sock. I hope that's not true. No, actually, I hope it is true. I admire that level of dedication. No, admire's the wrong word, isn't it? World of Warcraft's underlying story often gets overshadowed by the gameplay, but there is one there. More than the story itself, it's the continuous nature of the storytelling that's interesting here. More than 2 decades after the game's release, and the game and the story are still going. WoW simply won't die. It really is the cockroach of games, for so many reasons. Quick backtrack. I couldn't very well discuss early 2000s storytelling without mentioning Knights of the Old Republic, which probably had one of the biggest video game twists of all time. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, play the game and find out. In 2005, the mandatory story trends continued with games like God of War, and 05 was a slow year, but 2006 wasn't. Let's talk New Super Mario Bros. On Nintendo DS. The story? Mario and his missus are out for a walk when, wait for it, Mario gets distracted and his missus gets snatched. Happens to the best of us. Thankfully, in 2006, we also got Oblivion, which really cemented the Elder Scrolls series as a big player in the RPG, world building and storytelling realms. From the beginning, the RPG genre has been at the forefront of complex storytelling in video games, and more often than not, it's not just one linear story. Consider how many side plots and side quests often complement the main plot. Over the decades, RPGs have fueled so much storytelling innovation in video games. At the same time, they steal your soul, so evens out, I guess. In 2007, Mass Effect signaled that game developers were genuinely putting effort into storytelling. At the time, I recall this game being praised mostly for its story. This might be the first game where players were placing the story over the gameplay. A cultural shift was underway. In 2007, we got our first Witcher game. Of course, the entire Witcher series has a great story behind it. Why? Because it's based on a series of novels. I mean, that's the easiest way to ensure your game has a compelling narrative. Base it on a good book. And don't botch it. Easy to botch these things. I mean, how many Song of Ice and Fire games exist that no one ever played? Rhetorical question, no need to answer. In 2008, we got Grand Theft Auto 4. For a series that wasn't really doing story when GTA 1 came out a decade earlier, it's interesting to see how that approach evolved into fully fledged storytelling. And a lot of pointless bowling. Hey, cousin, let's go a bowling. Yeah, all my accents sound like Borat for some reason. No apologies. In 2009, Mario gets his missus snatched again in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And we also get storytelling galore with games like Assassin's Creed and Batman Arkham Asylum. By this point, storytelling is all but mandatory, and gamers expect a compelling narrative. It's not just about the gameplay anymore, unless it's a Mario game. That's a special case. Naturally, in 2010, Mario gets his missus snatched again. Does this guy ever learn? The game's Mario Galaxy 2, and it comes packed with great lines of dialogue like, "Have fun with your stupid mushrooms." Top tier writing there. Also in 2010, the Fallout franchise is alive and well with Fallout New Vegas. Excellent storytelling, rich world building, everything we've come to expect from an RPG. Nothing new here storytelling wise, but we're a little overdue for some evolution. Alright, what have we got? Oh, here we go. 2011 Skyrim ruined a few lives. Did it innovate story-wise? Not really, but it did have a compelling narrative full of twists and intrigue, all set in a rich and fascinating world. Clearly, a winning combo. In 2012, Mario's missus gets snatched again in New Super Mario Bros. 2. Two snatches are better than one, something like that. In 2013, we got The Last of Us, which many consider the pinnacle of video game storytelling. Here we go. So, why is The Last of Us put on such a tall pedestal? Well, it has great storytelling with constant conflict and tension, plenty of twists and turns, memorable characters, many of which undergo that all-important character development. The story's so top-notch, the game got turned into a TV series, and it apparently wasn't bad until the second season. I never saw it, but damn, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes took a nosedive right into the dirt. Ow! When it comes to 2014, there's one storytelling standout. South Park's The Stick of Truth, The Fractured Butthole. The South Park guys know how to tell a story, and they don't hold back for the game. The narrative's creative, compelling, and most importantly, entertaining. Legit laugh-out-loud moments, and a fresh take on the RPG genre. Good times. Pity they wouldn't last. 2015 was the year we saw our first Fallout fail, in many people's eyes anyway. After the universally beloved Fallout New Vegas, the franchise had a lot to live up to. But Fallout 4's story was lacking. It failed to capture the magic of previous games and narratives. The whole story was just flat and uninspiring, and many players said so, proving that gamers still cared about story, with some exceptions. We're about due for another snatching, aren't we? The problem with Fallout 4 was the gameplay sucked too. I mean, it felt like every mission was kill all the things in this area, when Fallout games used to be more nuanced than that. The point is, if you're going to slack off with the story, the gameplay better make us moist. Let's jump to 2017, where we got Super Mario Odyssey, and do you want to say it, or should I? Let's say it together. 3, 2, 1. Mario's missus got snatched. What are you going to do? 2018, Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm sure it had been done before, but here we got a game that took immersive storytelling to the next level. You're not just along for the ride, you're drowning yourself in the fictional world, becoming a part of it, maybe even forgetting your real identity. The fact that there's a VR mod for Red Dead 2 is kind of scary. Did we lose anyone yet? Maybe do a head count. Are we all here? In 2020, we got The Last of Us 2. Could the sequel live up to its predecessor? Some would argue yes, it does. Others would say it's too gay. Either way, the writers took some big swings and not everyone appreciated them. I respect any writer who pushes the boundaries and challenges people's expectations. I mean, within reason. 2022, let's talk Elden Ring, a game written by none other than fantasy author George R.R. Martin. I think it's a great experiment to bring well-known authors in to develop video game stories, but in this case, they picked the wrong guy. George was meant to be writing Winds of Winter. Why is he writing games now? At this point, people are just enabling him. It needs to stop. It seems George was brought more in for world building than storytelling. Elden Ring isn't known for its mind-blowing narrative, which is a little odd considering Martin was involved. With pure multiplayer games dominating the industry, are we seeing the end of story-based video games? Maybe not, because in 2023, we got another Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and... wait, that can't be right. But Mario's missus didn't get snatched. Bowser stole a flower? That's progress, I guess. Something different. No less shallow, but different. Well done. In 2023, we also got Alan Wake 2, complete with a dual narrative that's equal parts bizarre, tense, and gripping. Or, if you're in the anti-Alan Wake camp, convoluted and confusing. It's a psychological mystery thriller that takes an ambitious approach to video game narrative. It's great to see video game writers continuing to push the boundaries. Whether the end product lands or not, this type of behaviour should be encouraged. Looking at the 2025 release schedule, there's a healthy selection of story-based games in the mix. Even though multiplayer is dominating, we clearly still have a thirst for great storytelling. I mean, look how far we've come. From barely throwing a premise behind a game in the early days to complex storytelling, praiseworthy narratives, and rich world building, we've come a long way. The question is, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for storytelling in video games? Has Mario's missus been snatched for the last time? Before we step off the ride, I have one final question. Which game do you think is the greatest example of excellent video game storytelling? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this video, hit subscribe anyway and hate watch my content. That's always fun.